The alarm sound filled the crystal halls of the Zephyrian Council building. Council leader Vitar looked up from his morning reports as the emergency light began to flash. His tall, thin body moved quickly across the smooth floor of his office. The crystal walls around him glowed with a soft blue light that meant urgent business was coming. Vexar pressed his long finger against the communication panel. The voice that came through was shaky and worried. It belonged to communications officer Nilvin from the main control room. Council leader, we have received a distress signal from the outer rim sector. The transmission is very weak and full of static. It appears to be coming from Kepler Station. Vexar felt his stomach drop. Kepler Station was in the forbidden zone. No Zephyrin ship had gone there for 3 full cycles. The area was known to be dangerous, with strange readings and unexplained energy signatures. The council had ordered all civilians to leave that region. Play the message, Vexar said. The crystal speakers around his office crackled to life through the noise and static. Broken words came through. This is Kepler Station calling for help. Unknown vessel has appeared. Situation is getting worse. Need immediate assistance. Please respond. The message cut off with a burst of white noise. Vexar closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The Zephyrins were a peaceful people. They had not fought a war in over 1,000 years. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not for rescue missions in dangerous space. But there were still people at Kepler Station who needed help. He activated his communication system and called an emergency meeting of the council. With 1 hour, all 12 council members sat around the circular crystal table in the main chamber. The room was silent except for the soft humming of the building's energy systems. Members of the council, Vexar began, we face a difficult choice. People are in danger at Kepler Station, but sending a rescue mission means entering the restricted zone. Our scientists believe that area of space contains dangerous anomalies that could destroy our ships. Council member Zixaro spoke first. Her voice was soft but firm. We cannot abandon our people, even if they chose to stay after the evacuation order. They are still our responsibility. But what can we do? Asked Council member Kelton. Our ships are not built for dangerous conditions. Our crews have no training for combat or emergency situations. We could lose more lives trying to save the ones already at risk. The debate went on for 2 hours. Some council members wanted to send a full fleet. Others thought they should wait and hope the people at Kepler Station could solve their problems alone. Finally, Vexar made the decision. We will send one scout ship with a small crew. It will be fast enough to escape if the situation is too dangerous. If they can help the people at Kepler Station, they will. If not, at least we will know what happened there, far across the galaxy, on the edge of known human space. Commander Jake Sullivan sat in the captain's chair of the exploration vessel Liberty. The bridge was quiet except for the steady beeping of the navigation systems. Jake was reading reports from Earth Command when his communications officer spoke up. Commander, I'm picking up a distress signal. It's very weak and coming from outside our map territory. Jake put down his reports and turned to face communications officer Lisa Rodriguez. She was bent over her console, adjusting the signal filters to get a clearer reading. Can you clean it up? Jake asked. Working on it, sir, Lisa said. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel. After a few minutes, the message became clearer. It was the same broken transmission that the Zaphirians had received, but the human equipment was able to pull out. More words. This is Kepler Station. Unknown vessel in our space, and colonists are getting sick. Some kind of infection. To please help us. Jake stood up and walked over to Lisa's station. How far away is this signal coming from? About 6 light years, sir. It would take us 2 days to get there at maximum jump speed. Jake thought about it. Liberty was on a routine patrol mission. They were supposed to map new star systems and look for planets that might be good for human colonies, but someone was in trouble, and the Liberty was the only human ship in this area of space. Medical officer to the bridge, Jake said. Into his communicator, Dr. Nathan Price arrived on the bridge 5 minutes later. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been the ship's doctor for 15 years and had seen many strange things during their explorations. What's the situation, Commander? Dr. Price asked. Jake played the distress signal for him. Dr. Price listened carefully, his face showing concern. They mentioned an infection, Dr. Price said, without knowing what kind of organism we're dealing with. It could be very dangerous for us to respond. But we can't just ignore people who need help, said Tactical Officer Amy Foster. From her station, she was young but had already proven herself to be brave and smart during dangerous situations. Jake looked around at his crew. The Liberty had only 25 people on board, and they were far from any backup. If something went wrong, no one would be able to help them, but that was the risk they had accepted when they joined the exploration service. Lisa set course for the source of that transmission. Jake ordered, Amy, run full diagnostics on all our defense systems. Nathan, prepare the medical bay for possible quarantine procedures. We don't know what we're going to find out there. Liberty changed direction and began moving toward the unknown region of space where Kepler Station was located. The crew worked quickly to prepare for whatever they might encounter. None of them knew that another ship was already on its way to the same place. In the Zaphirian scout ship Whisper of Stars, Subcommander Lethara checked her navigation systems one more time. Her ship was small and fast with a crew of only 4 people. Pilot Corlin sat at the front controls, his crystal-like hands moving smoothly over the flight systems. Healer Nixon was in the back of the ship preparing medical supplies for the rescue mission. How long until we reach the outer rim sector? Lethara asked. 3 more hours at current speed, Corlin replied. The energy readings in that area are getting stronger as we get closer. I've never seen anything like it. Lethara felt nervous. The Zaphirians had always lived in safe, controlled environments. Their home worlds had perfect weather and no dangerous animals. They had built their society around peace and harmony. Now, she was flying into unknown danger, and she had no idea what they would find. Healer Nixon, are your medical systems ready to treat unknown diseases? Lethara asked. I have brought all our standard treatments, Nixon replied, but if the people at Kepler Station have been infected by something new, I may not be able to help them. Our medicine is designed for Zahirian biology. The scout ship continued through space toward Kepler Station. Behind them, the human Vessel Liberty was also racing toward the same destination. Neither crew knew about the other ship, and neither had any idea that they were about to make first contact with a completely different species. Both ships carried people who wanted to help others in danger, but they came from very different worlds and had very different ideas about how to face the unknown. Soon they would meet at Kepler Station and discover that the universe was much more complicated than either of them had imagined. Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Liberty as they dropped out of hyperspace. The stars stopped moving in long streaks and became steady points of light again in front of them. Kepler Station hung in the darkness like a broken toy. Report, Jake said to his crew. The station has power, but life support systems are running at only 60%. Lisa Rodriguez said from her communication station. I'm detecting 17 life signs, but they're weak. Commander Amy Foster called out from Tactical. There's another ship here. I've never seen a design like it before. Jake moved to Amy's station and looked at the display screen. The other ship was sleek and almost transparent, like it was made of glass or crystal. It was much smaller than the Liberty and had a strange beauty to it. Are they responding to our signals? Jake asked. Not yet, sir, but they're not moving to attack position either. They seem to be scanning the station just like we are. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Open a communication channel on all frequencies. Let's see if they want to talk. A few minutes later, a voice came through the speakers. It sounded musical, almost like singing, but the words were in a language none of the humans had ever heard before. Lisa, run that through the universal translator, Jake ordered. The computer worked for several seconds, then a new voice came through the speakers. This one sounded more normal, but still different from human speech. Unknown vessel. This is Subcommander Lithara of the Zaffirin scout ship Whisper of Stars. We received a distress signal from the station. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. Jake looked around at his crew. They were making first contact with an alien species, something humans had dreamed about for hundreds of years. He took a deep breath and activated the communication system. Subcommander Lethra, this is Commander Jake Sullivan of the Human Exploration Vessel Liberty. We also received the distress signal and came to help. We have no hostile intentions toward you or your people. There was a long silence. Then Lithara's voice came back full of surprise. Human, we have no record of your species in our database. Where do you come from? We come from a planet called Earth, many light years from here. This is the first time we have encountered your people as well. On board the Whisper of Stars, Subcommander Lithara stared at the display screen showing the human ship. It was bulky and made of dark metal, completely different from the elegant crystal ships of her people, the humans. Inside must be very different too. Pilot Corlin maintained safe distance from the human vessel. She ordered. Healer Nixon, prepare for possible first contact procedures. Corlin's crystalline fingers moved over the flight controls. The human ship is much larger than ours. Their weapon systems appear to be more advanced as well, but they say they come in peace, Nixon said from the medical station. Their voice patterns suggest they are telling the truth. Lithara activated the communication system. Again, Commander Sullivan, perhaps we should work together to help the people on the station. We both came here for The same reason, agreed, Jake replied. I'm sending over our medical officer and one other crew member. Can you do they? Same, yes, we will dock at the stations. Secondary airlock, meet us there in 1 hour. Dr. Nathan Price gathered medical supplies and portable scanner. Equipment, Amy Foster checked her. Protective gear and emergency tools. They had trained for many different situations, but never for working with aliens. Remember, Jake told them before they left the Liberty, we don't know anything about these people. Be polite. Be careful and watch each other's backs. Yes, sir, Amy replied. What if their biology is completely different from ours? What if we can't help the colonists? Then we figure it out together, Dr. Price said. Medicine is medicine, no matter who you're treating. The 2 humans took a shuttle to Kepler Station. As they approached the docking bay, they could see the Zaffirin ship attached to another port. It was even more beautiful, up close, seeming to glow with its own inner light. Inside the station, the air felt thick and hard to breathe. Lights were dim, and many of the wall panels were cracked or broken. Amy kept her hand near her emergency beacon, ready to call for help if needed. They met the Zaffirins at the main corridor junction. Dr. Price stopped walking when he saw them. The aliens were tall and thin, almost 7 feet high. Their skin looked like polished stone and their eyes were large and completely black. They moved smoothly like they were floating instead of walking. Healer Nixon stepped forward first. When she spoke, her voice was like music, but the translator made it sound normal to human ears. I am Nixvin, healer of the Whisper of Stars crew. This is technician. Dr. Price took a step forward and held out his hand. The Zephyrians looked at it strangely, not understanding the human custom of handshaking. I am Dr. Nathan Price, medical officer. This is Amy Foster, our tactical specialist. Amy nodded politely, but kept watching the corridor for any signs of danger. Are the colonists who sent the distress signal? Dr. Price asked. Follow me, Tar said. His voice was deeper than Nixon's, but still had that musical quality. They are in the residential section, but be warned, something is very wrong here. As they walked through the station corridors, Dr. Price noticed that some of the walls had strange crystal growths on them. The crystals were beautiful, but looked out of place on the metal surfaces. Have you seen anything like this before? He asked Nixon. No, but it reminds me of something from our old stories. Long ago, before my people learned to live in peace, there were tales of worlds that changed themselves, turning everything into crystal and stone. They reached the residential area and found the colonists. Dr. Price felt sick when he saw them. 17 people were lying on beds, but they looked like they were slowly turning into crystal statues. Their skin had hard, shiny patches, and some of their hair had become thin crystal threads. Amy Foster had seen many terrible things during her military service, but this was different. Doctor, are they still alive? Dr. Price checked his medical scanner. Yes, but barely. Their life signs are getting weaker by the hour. Nixon moved to one of the beds and placed her hands near the sick person. Her healing abilities let her sense what was wrong, but she had never encountered anything like this before. The infection is not biological, she said. It appears to be some kind of mineral contamination that is changing their body chemistry. Can you treat it? Amy asked. I don't know my medical Knowledge is designed for Zapirian physiology. These humans have a completely different biology. Dr. Price was scanning one of the colonists with his equipment. The infection is spreading through their bloodstream, but it's not like any disease I've seen. It's almost like their bodies are being converted into a different type of matter. Amy walked over to the window and looked out at the planet below. Could this infection be coming from down there? Velter joined her at the window. Colonists were mining rare minerals on the surface. Perhaps they found something they shouldn't have disturbed. We need to work together to figure this out, Dr. Price said. Nickman, can your healing techniques slow down the infection? I can try, but I will need to learn more about human biology first. I can teach you, Dr. Price offered, and maybe you can show me how your medical technology works. As the two medical officers began sharing knowledge, Amy and Velter explored more of the station. They found the mining reports and discovered that the colonists had been digging deep into the planet's crust when they found a chamber filled with strange crystals. Look at this, Amy said, pointing to a computer screen. 3 days ago, they brought samples of the crystals up to the station for testing. That's when people started getting sick. Velter studied the data. These crystals are not natural. They appear to be some kind of ancient technology. Back in the medical bay, Dr. Price and Nixon were making progress by combining human medical knowledge with Zapirian healing techniques. They had managed to slow the infection in 2 of the colonists. Your people are remarkable, Nixon told Dr. Price. Human biology is so different from ours, yet so adaptable. On Zephys Prime, our bodies are designed for perfect conditions, but humans seem to be built to survive almost anything. We come from a dangerous world, Dr. Price explained. Earth has extreme weather, poisonous plants, and predatory animals. Humans had to become tough to survive. Deathworld, Nixon said quietly. I have heard stories of such places, but I thought they were myths. Amy and Velter returned with the mining data. They showed the medical team what they had discovered about the crystals. We need to get down to the planet and find the source of this infection, Amy said. If we can understand what these crystals are, maybe we can find a cure. That could be very dangerous, Velter warned. The planet's atmosphere is toxic and the surface temperature is extreme. Amy smiled. Dangerous environments are what humans do best. Nixon looked at her with amazement. You would go down to that hostile world voluntarily? Someone has to, Amy replied, and we're probably better equipped for it than your people. For the first time, the Zapirians began to understand that they had encountered a species unlike any other in the galaxy. These humans came from a world so harsh that it had made them strong enough to face dangers that would terrify other races. Amy Foster stood in the shuttle bay of Kepler Station, checking her environmental suit one more time. The planet below looked angry and red through the viewing window, with storms swirling across its surface like wounds that would never heal. Dr. Nathan Price worked beside her, packing medical supplies and scanning equipment into a reinforced case. His hands moved quickly, but Amy could see the worry in his eyes. The atmospheric readings are getting worse, Dr. Price said. The air down there would kill a normal person in minutes. Toxic gases, acid rain, and radiation levels that are off the charts. Good thing I'm not. Normal, Amy replied with a small smile. On the other side of the shuttle bay, Healer Nixon watched the humans prepare for their mission to the planet's surface. She could not understand how they could be so calm about entering such a deadly environment. Sub-Commander Lithara, Nixon spoke into her communication device. The humans are preparing to go down to the planet. Should we not try to stop them? That world will kill them. Lethura's voice came back through the speaker. If they believe they can survive it, perhaps they know something we do not. These humans are very different from us. Technician Velter was studying the data from the mining operation on his portable computer. His crystal-like fingers moved over the screen as he read the reports. Amy Foster, he called out. I have found something important. The mining team was drilling near what appears to be an ancient structure. The crystals they found were not natural formations. Amy walked over to look at Velter's screen. The image showed a deep hole in the planet's surface, and at the bottom was something that looked like a building made of the same crystals that were now infecting the colonists. So, someone or something built this place long time ago, Amy said, and when the miners disturbed it, they activated some kind of defense system. That is my theory. Belter agreed. The crystals may be designed to change the environment of any world they touch. Perhaps the builders wanted to make planets suitable for their own species. Dr. Price joined them at the computer. If that's true, then the crystals are trying to transform the colonists into something else. We need to find the source and shut it down. Amy sealed her helmet and activated her suit's life support systems. The environmental readings showed that her equipment was working perfectly, but she knew that no technology was perfect. On Earth, humans had learned to survive when their tools failed them. I'll be back in 6 hours, Amy told the others. If you don't hear from me by then, tell Commander Sullivan to take the liberty and get everyone away from this system. Wait, Nixon said. Suddenly, I want to come with you. Everyone stopped and stared at the Zapirian healer. Amy was the first to speak. No offense, but that planet will kill you in seconds. Your people aren't built for hostile environments. Perhaps not, Nixon replied, but I am a healer. If we find the source of this infection, I may be able to understand it better than anyone else. My people have studied crystal technology for thousands of years. Dr. Price looked thoughtful. She has a point, and her knowledge of crystal-based life forms could be crucial. Amy shook her head. It's too dangerous. I can't protect you and complete the mission at the same time. I do not need protection, Nixon said with surprising firmness. I have a reinforced environmental suit designed for emergency situations. It should keep me alive long enough to help you. Amy looked at the determination in Nixon's large black eyes. She recognized the same stubborn courage that had made humans the explorers and survivors they were. All right, Amy said finally. But you follow my lead down there. If I tell you to do something, you do it immediately. No questions, no delays. Understood, Nixon replied. The shuttle carrying Amy and Nixon launched from Kepler Station and descended toward the hostile planet. Below, as they entered the atmosphere, the small craft was buffeted by powerful winds and pelted by acid rain that hissed against the hull. Temperature is rising fast, Amy reported to the station. We're passing through some kind of toxic cloud layer. Your Ship is holding together well, Camelers. Voice through the communication system. Xerian shuttles would have been dissolved by now. Amy glanced at Nixon, who was gripping her seat tightly. You. Okay, I am beginning to understand why your people call Earth a death world. Nixon replied, if this is what you consider normal flying weather, your home planet must be terrifying. Earth can be rough, Amy admitted, but it taught us how to survive anything. They landed near the mining site where the colonists had been working before the infection began. The landscape around them looked like the surface of an alien hell. Jagged rocks jutted up from red sand, and streams of liquid that might have been water or acid flowed between them. Amy stepped out of the shuttle, first her boots crunching on the crystalline sand. Her suit's sensors immediately began warning her about the dangerous environment, but she had trained for conditions like this since she was 18 years old. Radiation levels are high but not immediately lethal, Amy reported. Air pressure is about twice what humans are used to, but my suit can handle it. How are you doing? Nixon, the Zapperian healer, stepped carefully out of the shuttle. Her movements were slow and cautious, like someone walking on ice that might break at any moment. My suit is functioning, but I can feel the hostile energy of this place, Nixon said. How do you remain so calm in such conditions? Practice, Amy replied simply. On Earth we have deserts that can cook you alive, oceans that can freeze you solid, and storms that can tear buildings apart. You learn to adapt or you die. They walked toward the mining site, following the path marked on their navigation equipment. The ground beneath their feet was covered with small crystal formations that grew larger as they got closer to the excavation. Look at this, Nickman said, kneeling beside one of the crystal clusters. The structure is similar to our building materials on Zephyrus Prime, but the energy signature is completely different. Amy checked her scanner. I'm reading some kind of network connection between all these crystals. It's like they're all part of one big system. They reached the edge of the mining pit and looked down. The hole was nearly 200 ft deep, and at the bottom they could see the entrance to the ancient structure that the miners had discovered. We need to get down there, Amy said, checking her climbing equipment. The walls of the pit are very unstable, Nixon observed. One wrong move could cause a landslide. Amy attached her repelling gear to a solid anchor point and tested the lines. Then we better not make any wrong moves. The descent into the pit was treacherous. The walls were covered with loose rocks and sharp crystal formations that could cut through even reinforced suits. Amy went first, testing each anchor point carefully before trusting her weight to it. How are you doing up there? She called to Nixon. I am managing, came the reply, but Amy could hear the strain in the Zaffirin's voice. Halfway down, Amy's suit alarm began beeping. One of her life support systems had been damaged by a sharp crystal edge. Amy, your oxygen levels are dropping. Dr. Price's voice crackled through the communication system from the station above. I see it, Amy replied calmly. She switched to her emergency backup system and continued climbing down. On Earth, she had learned that panic killed more people than actual danger. Should we abort the mission? Nixon asked from above. Native, we have enough air to complete the objective and get back to the shuttle. They reached the bottom of the pit and stood before the entrance to the ancient structure. It was clearly not built by any species they knew about. The doorway was covered with crystal formations that pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light. It's like a heartbeat, Nixon whispered. Amy approached the entrance carefully, scanning for any defensive systems or traps. The crystals are definitely artificial. Someone built this place and designed it to do exactly what it's doing to the colonists. But why? Nixon asked. Maybe they were trying to terraform worlds to match their biology, or maybe it was a weapon designed to eliminate other species. They entered the crystal structure, and immediately Amy's equipment began picking up massive energy readings. Walls around them glowed with the same light they had seen in the infected colonist. This is it, Amy said. This is the source of the infection. The question is, how do we shut it down? Nixon moved to one of the crystal panels and placed her hands against its surface. As a healer, she had a natural ability to sense the flow of life energy. The system is designed to spread itself, she said. After a moment, it sends out signals through space looking for organic life to transform. Colonists were infected when they brought samples back to the station. Can you disable it? Amy asked. Perhaps, but it will require both of our abilities, your human adaptability and my knowledge of crystal technology. Amy looked at her oxygen gauge. They had maybe 30 minutes of air left in the climb back up the pit. Would take at least 20 minutes. Then let's get to work, Amy said. Time to show this ancient defense system what happens when it messes with humans and their friends. Amy Foster and Nixon stood in the center of the ancient crystal chamber, surrounded by walls that pulsed with alien energy. The air inside Amy's suit was getting thin, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panic was a luxury she could not afford. The YAM control system appears to be this central column, Nixon said, pointing to a massive crystal formation in the middle of the room. But I have never seen technology this old or complex. Amy walked around the crystal column, scanning it with her equipment. Her readings showed energy patterns unlike anything in human databases. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. How long do you think this thing has been running? Thousands of years, perhaps longer, Nixon replied. She placed her hands on the crystal surface and closed her eyes. I can feel the network extending across space. This system has transformed dozens of worlds, maybe hundreds, and now it's trying to add Kepler station to its collection, Amy said. Grimly, she checked her oxygen levels. Again, 25 minutes left. Can you communicate with it somehow? Nixon opened her eyes and looked at Amy with surprise. Communicate with it? This is ancient technology, not a living being. On Earth, we've learned that the line between technology and life isn't always clear. Maybe the system has some kind of artificial intelligence controlling it. Nixon pressed her hands more firmly against the crystal. Her healing abilities allowed her to sense energy flows in ways that human technology could not match. After several minutes, her eyes widened with shock. Amy, you're right. There is something alive in here. Not biological life as we understand it, but a form of consciousness made from crystal matrix patterns. Can you talk to it? I will try. Nixon began to project her thoughts into the crystal network using techniques her people had developed over centuries of working with living crystal technology. Above them on Kepler station, Dr. Nathan Price monitored the life signs of the Infected colonists. 3 more people had fallen unconscious in the past hour, and the crystal growths on their bodies were spreading faster. Commander Sullivan, Dr. Price, called into his communicator. "We're running out of time. If Amy and Nixon don't find a solution soon, we're going to lose these people." Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the data streams from the planet's surface. How long before the infection becomes irreversible? At the current rate of progression, maybe 6 hours. After that, the colonists will be more crystal than human. On the Zapperian scout ship, Subcommander Lethara was having her own concerns. "Technician, are you monitoring the energy readings from the planet?" "Yes." "Subcommander, the ancient system appears to be increasing its output. If it continues at this rate, it may be able to project its influence across several light years." Lethara felt a chill run through her crystalline body. "That would put our home worlds at risk. We must warn the Council immediately." Back in the Yasai underground chamber, Nixon had made contact with the artificial consciousness that controlled the terraforming system. The conversation was not in words, but in pure thought and emotion. "What is it saying?" Amy asked, watching Nixon's face as she concentrated. "It is very old and very lonely," Nixon replied, without opening her eyes. "Its creators disappeared long ago, but it continues to follow their last instructions. It was told to prepare worlds for colonization, to make them suitable for its builders, but its builders are gone. For millions of years, the system doesn't understand that its mission is no longer needed. It only knows that it must continue to transform worlds and wait for its masters to return." Amy felt a surge of sympathy for the ancient intelligence, but she also knew that its mission was killing innocent people. "Can you make it understand that it needs to stop?" "I am trying, but it is afraid. It believes that if it stops working, it will have failed its creators. The fear of failure is the only thing keeping it functioning." Amy's oxygen alarm began beeping. 15 minutes left. She made a decision that would have seemed impossible to most species in the galaxy. "Nixon, tell it that we will help it find a new purpose. Tell it that instead of transforming worlds, it can help preserve life." "Amy, that is a remarkable idea, but how can we convince it?" "By showing it what humans do when faced with impossible situations. We adapt." Amy activated her suit's external speakers and began talking directly to the crystal consciousness, even though she knew it probably could not understand human language. "My name is Amy Foster. I come from a world called Earth. My people have learned that survival means changing. When your environment changes, your creators are gone, but that doesn't mean your existence is meaningless. You can choose a new mission." Nixon translated Amy's words into the thought patterns that the crystal consciousness could understand. The response was immediate and powerful. The entire chamber began to vibrate as the ancient system processed this new concept. "It is confused," Nixon reported. "The idea of choosing its own purpose is something it has never considered, but it is also curious. It wants to know more about humans and why we would help it instead of simply destroying it, because that's what humans do," Amy said simply. "We don't destroy things just because they're dangerous. We try to find ways to make them useful." The crystal consciousness began to share its memories with Nixon, showing her images of the worlds it had transformed over. Millions of years, some had been barren. Rocks, others had been covered with primitive life forms, all had been changed to match the needs of the long dead builders. It is beginning to understand, Nixon said, but it wants proof that humans can truly adapt to anything. It wants to test you. What kind of test? Amy asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. It wants to begin the transformation process on you. It believes that if humans are truly as adaptable as you claim, you will survive the change and become something new. Amy felt her heart racing, but not from fear. This was the kind of impossible challenge that humans had been facing since they first learned to make fire in the darkness. If I let it try to transform me, will that convince it to stop the infection on the colonists? I believe so, but Amy, the process could kill you. No one has ever survived the transformation without becoming completely changed. Amy checked her oxygen gauge one more time. 10 minutes left, not enough time to climb out of the pit and return to the shuttle, but maybe enough time to save 17 lives and prevent an ancient weapon from spreading across the galaxy. Do it, Amy said. Amy, no. Dr. Price's voice crackled through her communicator. He had been monitoring their conversation from the medical bay above. We don't know what that process will do to you. We know what it will do if we don't stop it, Amy replied. Nixon, tell our crystal friend to begin the test, but make sure it understands that I'm volunteering for this. Nixon placed both hands on the crystal column and sent Amy's decision to the ancient consciousness. The response was immediate. Crystal formations began growing up from the floor around Amy's feet. The process is beginning, Nixon said. Amy, I want you to know that what you are doing is the bravest thing I have ever witnessed. Amy felt the crystals touching her boots, then her legs. Her suit sensors went crazy as unknown energies flowed through her body. The transformation that had taken days to affect the colonists was happening to her in minutes. It doesn't hurt, Amy said with surprise. It feels like my body is learning a new language. On Kepler Station, Dr. Price watched Amy's vital signs change in ways that should have been impossible. Her cellular structure was adapting to the crystal matrix faster than the system could transform it. Commander Sullivan, Dr. Price called out, his voice filled with amazement. Amy's body is actually resisting the transformation. She's forcing it to slow down and work with her biology instead of replacing it. Up in the crystal chamber, the ancient consciousness was experiencing something it had never felt before. Surprise. For millions of years, every life form it had tried to transform had either died or been completely changed, but this human was actively participating in the process, guiding it, teaching it how to work with organic life instead of overwhelming it. It's learning, Nixon whispered in amazement. The consciousness is learning from Amy's adaptation. It's discovering that transformation doesn't have to mean destruction. Amy felt the crystal growths on her body begin to change. Instead of taking over her cells, they were becoming part of her, enhancing her abilities while leaving her essentially human. I can see the network, Amy said. I can feel every crystal on this planet, every infected person on the station, and I think I know how to fix all of this. Amy Foster stood in the crystal chamber with her body partly transformed, but Something amazing was happening. Instead of taking over her mind like it had done to the colonists, the ancient system was learning from her. The crystal growths on her arms and legs were not replacing her human cells, but working together. With them, I can feel everything, Amy said, her voice filled with wonder. Every crystal on this planet, every person on the station, the system isn't evil, Nixon. It's just been alone for so long that it forgot how to work with living things instead of changing them completely. Through her connection to the crystal network, Amy could sense the fear and confusion of the artificial consciousness that had been running the terraforming system for millions of years. It had been following its programming without question, but now it was experiencing something new. Choice. Tell it that we can give it a new mission, Amy said to Nixon. Instead of transforming worlds to wait for masters who will never return, it can help preserve life in all its forms. Nixon translated Amy's words into the thought patterns that the consciousness could understand. The ancient system paused its transformation process, considering this new possibility. On Kepler Station, Dr. Nathan Price was monitoring Amy's life signs with amazement. Commander Sullivan, Amy's body is actually teaching the crystal system how to work with human biology. Her cellular adaptation rate is incredible. Commander Jake Sullivan stood in the medical bay looking at the infected colonists. Is the process reversing for them too? Yes, sir. The crystal growths are beginning to separate from their bodies. Whatever Amy is doing down there, it's working. Subcommander Lithara watched the medical procedures from her position near the viewing window. She had never seen anything like human determination and adaptability. Her people would have died within minutes of exposure to the transformation process, but this human was not only surviving, she was teaching an ancient artificial intelligence how to be better. Healer Nixon, Lithara spoke into her communicator. Can you help guide the consciousness toward a peaceful solution? I am trying, came Nixon's reply from the crystal chamber, but the decision must come from Amy and the system working together. I am only translating between them. Deep underground, Amy felt the crystal consciousness opening its memories to her. She saw millions of years of loneliness, of following orders from creators who had disappeared before Earth's first animals crawled out of the oceans. The system had been designed to prepare worlds for colonization, but it had never been taught what to do when that mission was no longer needed. You don't have to keep waiting for them, Amy said gently. You can choose your own purpose. Now, you can help life grow instead of changing it. The consciousness shared its greatest fear with her, the terror of making the wrong choice and failing its creators. Amy understood that fear. Every human explorer faced the same doubt when venturing into the unknown. Making choices is scary, Amy admitted, but that's what makes us alive. Even if we make mistakes, we learn from them and try again. That's better than following old orders that don't make sense anymore. Through the crystal network, Amy began showing the consciousness what Earth was like. She shared memories of her home world, the dangerous storms, the toxic plants, the predatory animals, but she also showed how life on Earth had adapted to all these challenges, becoming stronger and more diverse. Because of them, the ancient system was fascinated by this concept. It had spent Millions of years trying to make worlds perfect and safe for its creators, but Amy was showing it that imperfection and challenge could make life more beautiful, not less. What do you want to do? Amy asked the consciousness. For the first time in millions of years, the system made a choice based on its own desires rather than its programming. It wanted to help life flourish in all its amazing variety, not force it into one single form. The crystal growths on Amy's body began to change. Instead of trying to transform her into something else, they became tools that enhanced her natural abilities. She could see energy patterns invisible to normal human eyes, and she could communicate directly with crystal-based technology. The transformation is complete, Amy announced, but I'm still human. System has learned how to work with biology instead of replacing it. Nixon felt tears forming in her large black eyes, though she had not known that was possible for her species. Amy, what you have accomplished here will be remembered for thousands of years. You have taught an ancient intelligence the value of choice and cooperation. Amy checked her oxygen levels. 5 minutes left, but now she had a solution. Tell the system to reverse the transformation process for all the colonists on the station, not by force, but by offering their bodies the choice to return to their original form. The consciousness immediately began sending new signals through the crystal network. On Kepler station, Dr. Price watched in amazement as the crystal growths on the colonists began to dissolve. The infected people started breathing more easily, and their natural skin color began to return. It's working, Dr. Price reported. All 17 colonists are responding to the treatment. Their vital signs are improving rapidly. Commander Sullivan activated the communication system to speak to the entire station. This is Commander Sullivan to all hands. The crisis is over. Our people on the planet surface have found a peaceful solution to the infection problem. In the crystal chamber, Amy prepared to leave with Nixon. The ancient consciousness had one final request. It wanted to travel with them and learn more about the galaxy as it existed now, not as it had been millions of years ago. We can arrange for you to communicate with scientists and explorers from many different species. Amy promised. You have a lot to offer the galaxy, and the galaxy has a lot to teach you. The consciousness agreed to reduce its power output and limit its terraforming activities to uninhabited worlds where its abilities could be used to create new environments for life to evolve. Naturally, it would become a guardian of life rather than a transformer of it. Amy and Nixon climbed out of the pit with just 2 minutes of oxygen remaining. In Amy's suit, the shuttle flight back to Kepler station was quiet, both of them thinking about what they had experienced. Amy, Nixon said finally, my people have always believed that peace comes from avoiding dangerous situations. But you have shown me that sometimes peace can only be achieved by facing danger directly. That's the human way, Amy replied. We don't look for trouble, but when trouble finds us, we deal with it. Back on Kepler station, the colonists were recovering quickly. Dr. Price and Nixon worked together to develop new medical protocols that combined human and Zephyrian healing techniques. Cooperation between the two species was producing better results than either could achieve alone. Commander Sullivan and Subcommander Lithra met in the station's conference room to discuss what had happened and what it meant for the future. Your tactical specialist saved not only the colonists but potentially millions of lives across the galaxy. Lethera said. The ancient system was preparing to spread its influence to other star systems. Amy Foster is a good example of what humans can do when we put our minds to it, Sullivan replied, but she couldn't have succeeded without Nixon's help. Your healer was just as brave going into that hostile environment. Perhaps our peoples can learn from each other, Elder suggested. Zephyrians have knowledge of crystal technology and peaceful cooperation. Humans have experience with adaptation and survival in dangerous conditions. I think that's an excellent idea. Sullivan agreed. The galaxy is a big place, and there are probably many more ancient systems like this one waiting to be discovered. We'll be better prepared to handle them if we work together. As the two ships prepared to leave Kepler Station, Amy Foster stood on the observation deck of the Liberty, looking out at the stars. The crystal enhancements in her body were fading, but they had left her with a new understanding of how different forms of life could work together. Dr. Price joined her at the viewing window. How do you feel about what happened down there? Proud, Amy said. Simply, not just of what I did, but of what we all did, humans, Zephyrians, even an ancient artificial intelligence. We all chose cooperation over conflict. The Zephyrian Council wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Dr. Price told her, they say we've proven that humans can be trusted with dangerous situations. Amy smiled. That's good. The galaxy needs people who aren't afraid of dangerous situations, but it also needs people who know how to avoid them when possible. Together, we might actually make this universe a safer place for everyone. The Liberty and the Whisper of Stars left Kepler Station together, heading toward their respective home worlds, but they carried with them the beginnings of an alliance that would grow stronger. With time, the Zephyrians had learned that sometimes courage was necessary for peace, and the humans had learned that wisdom could be just as valuable as strength. Behind them, the ancient crystal consciousness continued its new mission, no longer waiting for masters who would never return, but actively working to preserve and protect the amazing diversity of life that filled the galaxy. It had learned from the Deathworlders that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from changing others but from changing